The question is that the address be agreed to, and I call the member for Latrobe.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I wish to speak to the address in reply. It is a great honour to be re-elected as the federal member for Latrobe. I would first like to acknowledge a former member of Latrobe, Laura Smythe, and wish her all the best in the future. I'm also saddened to see the former member for Indi, Sophie Mirabella, will no longer be returning to Parliament. This is a great shame. And also Senator Helen Kroger's term will conclude next year. Another great shame. I must thank the people of Latrobe for again allowing me to earn their trust and allow me to be their voice in Parliament. I will devote myself to ensuring the place we call home is an even greater place to live. For those who voted for me, I thank you for the honour of being your representative. I will work hard to prove that your faith in me is well-founded. For those that chose otherwise, I will work hard to win your favour, and I will continue to represent you to the best of my ability. I was first elected back in 2004 into a strong Howard government. John Howard was truly a great Prime Minister. Under Howard and Peter Costello, the Treasurer, the Coalition paid back $96 billion of Labor's debt. Locally in Latrobe back in 2004, our campaign, we promised to do many things that we delivered on, one of which was to build the Brynmore Bridge in Beaconsfield for $10 million. At the same time, the Labor Party committed $25 million for the bridge. Under the Howard government, we built the bridge for $8 million. Labor was prepared to waste $17 million. We also promised $800,000 to Fernley House palliative care. This meant that family members and patients who were already dealing with a very difficult situation, a tragic situation, no longer had to travel to either Box Hill or Caulfield to receive palliative care that they so desperately needed. They could now simply go to Fernley House in their own electorate of Latrobe. We engaged with the community and delivered lights to the Bronia Football Club and upgrades to the Basin Football Club and Cricket Club, and the Upwey RSL received $220,000 under our leadership. Essential traffic lights were installed in Officer, which allowed parents to safely drop their children at school. The Shangri-La Wildlife Centre received funding for the first time ever from either a state, federal or even council. Well done to Rod and Tina for their great work in rescuing and nursing back to health injured wildlife. Barinja Performing Arts Centre in Upwey received $2.5 million and Gemco Performing Arts Centre in Emerald received $450,000. The Howard government's investing in school programs saw local schools receive up to $150,000 each. I recall Mount Dandenong Primary School had brand new playground equipment installed. And Berwick Lodge Primary School wanted a radio station, so they got a radio station. The school communities determined what they wanted because this is how we serve them best, and they got what they wanted. In 2006, I'm very proud to say that after discussions with the Ferny Creek Scouts about the need for water tanks, new gutters and associated plumbing for scout halls, I took the idea to Prime Minister John Howard. He agreed with our views, and not only did we ensure that the Ferny Creek Scout Hall got the water tanks, but we made sure that every Scout Hall in Australia would receive the same and committed $17 million to the project. What's interesting to note about all these local promises and commitments, there was no allegations of waste or mismanagement of taxpayers' dollars. In 2007, former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd walked into a $20 billion surplus. But together with former Prime Minister Julie Gillard, we now have a $400 billion black hole, borrowing over $80 million per day, with an annual interest bill of $10 billion. It was a great contest between Prime Minister Rudd and Prime Minister Gillard for who could come up with the dumbest policy ideas and waste the most money. There was no clear winner, so the Labor Party must get the award, and sadly at the Australian people's expense. Now let's look at a snapshot of some of Labor's schemes that were developed during this time. We had cash for clunkers. There was Grocery Watch, $7 million. Fuel Watch, $20 million. There was the set-top box program, $67 million. There was the carbon tax advertising, $69 million. And in Senate estimates, $100,000 on building a fake kitchen. What a waste of money. There was the immigration budget blowout, $10 billion, and yet there was still about 50,000 people arrived on our shores illegally during that time. There was the Pink Bats, or Home Insulation Scheme, $2.4 billion. And with the Pink Bat scheme, we had widespread rorting of the system, 224 house fires, and tragically, very tragically, 4 deaths. In fact, Jackie and Alex Quantidum from Berwick contacted me after they were concerned that the insulation they had installed in their house was a fire danger, and sure enough, they were right. Jackie and Alex were one of 250,000 houses in Australia which were deemed to be unsafe and had to be rendered safe. What a waste of taxpayers' money. Well, that's all in the past, thankfully. Now let's look to the future under an Abbott government. Locally, our commitments made during the election campaign span across the electorate of Trobe in various forms. The Abbott government committed $3 million to the reduction of bushfire fuel and weed eradication in the Dandenong Ranges, a very important issue to those in my electorate. For this, I must thank my friend, the Honourable Greg Hunt, as the only reason we were able to make this commitment was through his personal intervention. I find it amazing that I'd made previous announcements during the 2007 and 2010 campaigns, but they were never matched by Labor or supported by the Greens. Only a Liberal government will truly look after the Dandenong Ranges. The Abbott government has committed $1 million towards Windermere to complete their purpose-built two-mast centre, which will offer care and support services for the vulnerable families and individuals. I acknowledge the great work of the CEO of Windermere, Dr Lynette Boy, and her amazing staff and her board. The Abbott government committed $1.5 million to complete a blind and vision-impaired school at Berwick campus of Monash University. I must congratulate Alan Lackman, who has worked tirelessly with his wife, Maria Franca, and his 3 daughters, Sabrina, Alexandra and Francisca. There is no school like this in Victoria, and I strongly support the Insight Education Centre for the Blind and Vision Impaired and all the work you do. And I again must thank the Honourable Greg Hunt and this time the Honourable Senator Mitch Fifield for their great support to ensure this election commitment was made. It was actually made the Thursday before the election, so there was no media. It was just one of those things which we believed as Liberal members we should deliver as a promise. The Abbott government committed $1.5 million to the Emerald Primary School so that they can build a new basketball facility and home ground for the Emerald Lakers. Thank you to the principal of Emerald Primary School, Mark Kavanagh, the former president of Emerald Lakers, Rob Fredericks, and the Emerald Primary School. Working with you has been a pleasure, and I look forward to creating a better education environment for our children. The Abbott government committed $50,000 to the Hilltop Recreation Association in Linda to install adequate lighting. This will not only help the local sporting clubs at the Linda Reserve, but bring light to the Melbourne Oxfam trail walks, as this is a checkpoint. Thank you to the Hilltop Recreation Association, and in particular Stephen Scott, otherwise known as Sid. I worked closely with Sid since the inception in 2007, and we have a long association, even going back and playing in junior football. Sid was a very good footballer, and sadly I was not. I committed $250,000 to the South Belgrave Community Project. The Coalition's funding commitment means that the construction of new facilities for the South Belgrave Football Club and other community groups now is within reach. Well done to Ian Bacons, who worked with me to secure this funding. The Abbott government has committed $500,000 for the Emerald Chandler Reserve to build a new pavilion. Thank you to the Emerald Football and Netball Clubs, Emerald Cricket Club and Avensley Tennis Club. Local sporting clubs are often pillars of our community. I'm proud to be part of a team that supports our local sporting institutions. I must thank Bill and Robin Keyes, who encouraged me to run again for Parliament, especially when they realised the Labor government did not support their club. The Abbott government has committed $500,000 towards the Upwey Tacoma Community and Sporting Recreation Hub. I would like to acknowledge the great work of Andrew Peterson, who worked with me behind the scenes to secure the funding for this rundown facility to be restored through a fully functional facility that can also serve as a meeting point during natural disasters. The Abbott government has also committed $450,000 to the eradication of wandering trad, a noxious weed which is infesting the 50 kilometres of creeks in the hills and is a significant threat to the biodiversity of native plants in this area. Thanks again must first of all go to the Honourable Malcolm Turnbull, who back in 2007, as Environmental Minister, committed funding to eradicate wandering trad, but was overturned by the new Rudd government. Then I thank the Honourable Greg Hunt again, who's been working with me on this project since 2008. And we made commitments back in the 2010 and 2013 campaigns. And we will have the CSIRO look at undertaking research to determine and to see if we can ensure we can eradicate this weed for good through environmental control. The Labor Party and Greens are a lot of talk when it comes to the environment in Latrobe, but only the Coalition has made election commitments and we deliver on our promises. However, my number one issue in Latrobe is the prevention of youth suicide and the increasing of the awareness when it comes to mental health issues. At a national level, the most recent data available from the Australian Bureau of Statistics is from 2011. In total, during 2011, 2,273 people tragically took their own lives, and in these figures there were 483 people from Victoria. Between the ages of 15 to 24, there were 62 young people who heartbreakingly are no longer with us. There have been way too many young people who have taken their lives and are no longer with us. As far as I'm concerned, the only number that is acceptable is 0. We'll never understand the pain and suffering their families go through, the toll it takes on fellow students at the school and the emotional toll on the entire community. When I was a detective at Bronte and Knox Criminal Investigations Branch, we had one of the highest levels of attendance of suicide. I've completely lost count of how many suicides I've investigated, how many suicide notes I've read and how many families I've comforted during those years as a detective. I recently was at a fundraiser for Beyond Blue, organised by Berwick Rotary Club, a fantastic event. There, Jeff Kennett, the former Premier of Victoria and now CEO of Beyond Blue, described suicide as having an axis of evil: depression, drugs and alcohol. The only question really is which one comes first. The way I see it, my role in battling youth suicide and mental illness is to bring more counselling services to Latrobe, more activities for young people to escape the awful curse of depression, whether it be through the sports or the arts. There needs to be more opportunity to receive help when it is wanted and, more importantly, when it is needed. There's already been some promises made locally with a Headspace unit, which will be opening next year in either Narre Warren or Berwick. I look forward to working with Headspace to offer the youth in our area a wide range of health and wellbeing support, including mental health, general health, help with alcohol and the curse of drugs. I also believe there's a strong need for a Headspace centre to cater for young people in the Dandenong Ranges, and I congratulate the Shire of Yarra Rangers for pushing this. And this morning we had a very constructive meeting with the Health Minister, my friend, the Honourable Peter Dutton. There's a lot of work to do, and I must say all involved in government and council from all political parties and all backgrounds are working together. And I will continue to do so in Latrobe, in Victoria and in Australia, because this is not an issue that can be ignored or politicised. It's something we need to take note and sit up and take action on. Prior to my forced exit from Parliament, I had the great pleasure of being the Shadow Parliamentary Secretary for Policing and Law Enforcement. I was appointed in 2008 by the then Opposition Leader Malcolm Turnbull as Shadow Parliamentary Secretary for Justice and Public Security, which under Tony Abbott's leadership changed to policing and law enforcement. As part of my role, I developed the law enforcement policy on gangs for the Coalition in 2010 election campaign. The policy I developed focused on establishing $33 million towards a national violent gangs database and $95 million for an additional 200 investigators to be seconded from the AFP and state and territory police to the Australian Crime Commission to establish a national gangs squad. Sadly, the Labor Party has ripped the heart out of the Australian Crime Commission, and they've basically stopped paying the bills for the seconded detectives, and now it's just an intelligence gathering mechanism, which it's very sad to see. The policy was designed to target all violent gangs, from youth gangs to street gangs, and to the ever-growing outlaw motorcycle gangs, as well as the gangs involved in street shootings. I'm very proud to see, on the election of the Abbott government, the first major law enforcement announcement by Minister Justice Keenan, in conjunction with the state's announcement, was $64 million towards creating a national anti-gangs task force, working with the Australian and through the Australian Crime Commission. The next focus on gangs must be to establish a national violent gangs database. This is a missing piece of law enforcement puzzle when it comes to outlaw motorcycle gangs and all gangs. Together with stronger unexplained wealth legislation, both are very important tools to take on gangs. I think it's also necessary to thank all those people who helped me during the campaign. It was truly a great team effort. I can't thank all my volunteers. Your hard work was invaluable, and I cannot be more grateful for it. I would like to first of all thank my campaign manager, Gary Runge, who's here with us today, and now my Chief of Staff. Thank you, Gary, and also apologise to his wife, Sue, for dragging Gary through hell. To my FEC Chair, David Holmes, you've been always a very great and loyal supporter. Branch members and supporters, Carol Porter, Joy Bishop, Pauline Heatherton, Brian Heatherton, Kay Moreland, Mick Moreland, Andrew McNabb, Julie Hughes, Eric Richmond, Hubert Novak, Ken and Carmen Dayton, Janet Housel, Tia and Susanna, Steve Hartney, Todd Coleman and Trevor Withers, Councillor Amanda Stapleton and Councillor Sam Aziz. Also must thank the State Director of Victoria Liberal Party, Damien Mantak. You did a fantastic job. I can't thank you and the Deputy Director, Andrew Cox, and also Simon Frost for all your great support through the campaign. And also State President Tony Snell, the committee and all the Liberal supporters and all the staff at 104. You did a truly amazing job. Also must thank the Honourable Senator Mitch Fifield, the patron senator for Latrobe. Mitch did a fantastic job. But also too Senator Michael Ronaldson and Senator Helen Kroger, the Honourable Greg Hunt, the Honourable Christopher Pine. Thank you so much, Christopher. The Honourable Malcolm Turnbull, Josh Frydenberg, and the State Member for Gembrook, Brad Batten. Also had very strong support from young Liberals, and must thank Evan Mulholland and the Melbourne University Liberal Club, Michael Subject, for all your great support. You guys were fantastic. After losing the seat of Latrobe in 2010, I was invited back to Victoria Police, where I became a Detective Senior Sergeant, and I previously worked with the Victoria Police for 18 years. I would like to thank Inspector Mike Linsky for all his support, and Michelle Wells from Crime Command, and also the Crime Command for their support. Now, closer to home, I must thank my parents, Bob and Jan, for all their support. It's always tough on family members of MPs, as they often feel the heat of our political views and the way our parties make decisions. The highlight of the campaign for many local residents was not the local political battle between Liberal and Labor, but the media was very focused on our campaign mascot, Mr Black the Great Dane. Mr Black, thank you very much. You'll be rewarded with your favourite treat, a pig's ear. And last but definitely not least, thank you to my beautiful and lovely wife who's up there today. And Judy, you've been absolutely fantastic support coming out to all the functions and putting up with me, and I adore you and thank you for your support. I'm pleased to announce to the House we're expecting our first child in April next year. So thank you very much. So in closing, it's again a great honour to be serving the people of Latrobe. Thank you so much.
Welcome back.